headed by USEC Jeffrey Ian Lee, to really make sure that we could at least prevent all these cybersecurity issues that are happening right now. I mean, we could name at least the PhilHealth data breach, the one from PNP. Just earlier this week, yung daw pong logistics database ng PNP that relates to their firearms, the breach then. So we are really trying to make sure that we are attuned with all the requirements in the National Cybersecurity Plan, and that we really need to build collaboration with all other agencies in the fight against cyber crimes and cybersecurity.
In order for us to build a robust resilience in an organization as well as in the private sector, not just the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines, together with the other organizations, we are all together when it comes to pushing of the bill, when it comes to critical info and infrastructure. So there are a lot of organizations that pushing through that bill so that to help the cybersecurity environment or ecosystem. And at the same time, the most important part when it comes to this is the support of our leadership. So it is where budget comes in, right? Through the support, we admit that majority of us in the organization has less budget when it comes to cybersecurity. Some have no budget, unfortunately. Yeah. So, of course, when it comes to the government, we have the EO 265 from President Estrada when it comes to the budget, when it comes to cybersecurity as well, and the ISSP, wherein we propose our budget where cybersecurity, data privacy, and other computer-related or information technology equipments are in there. So that's the time that we can plan our next 3 years for protection of our organization as well. And at the same time, not just the budget or support from the leadership, also support from the leadership to train our employees. This is the very important part, to train and spread awareness. Imagine sometimes simple cyber hygiene, even senior citizen in our employees must have an awareness when it comes to cyber hygiene. There are a lot of senior citizens are affected when it comes to cybersecurity breach, threats, and a lot of risks. So for me, training, policies and procedure, and budget.
Very good points. Actually, in our organization, in the Philippine Institute of Cybersecurity Professionals, we do advocate cybersecurity education and awareness because we believe that cyber resilience should start from within. We cannot promote cybersecurity without first believing that we need cybersecurity, which comes to this next question. Beyond technology, the human element remains crucial. Of course, we have a while ago people, process, and technology. Now, how can we prioritize capacity building and awareness programs like what we have mentioned a while ago to create a more cybersecurity conscious workforce? How about?
Well, capacity building, as mentioned by Doc Choi here, is one of the main important points wherein we could really fight cybercrime and cybersecurity. While there are those people who are saying that the weakest link in the technology chain is the human factor, I also do believe that capacitating them, upskilling them, reskilling them would actually give them an advantage in fighting cybercrimes and building a resilient cybersecurity posture. Just this morning, before I proceeded here, we had a meeting in our office dito po sa BGC, sa CICC. And what we had was an orientation on the CISA and CISO training or certification. Our executive director, heeding the call of President BBM, wanted to capacitate all the people in our organization by certifying as CISO nga tsaka po sa CISA. And that is one of the main points that our Executive Director, Alexander Ramos, is really trying to put an emphasis on, because he knows that we're really doing our very best to fight cybercrime, but then whether we admit it or not, cyber hackers are always 2 steps ahead of us. Well, especially us in the government, as mentioned also by Dr. Joy, we're facing budget constraints. That's always one of the things that is really keeping us from really putting out an all-out war against cybercrimes. But with with the initiative right now by our executive director to capacitate all of us to at least to have a background in being a in a certified information security officer and certified information security auditor, then I think it's a great step towards capacitating everyone, at least in our organization, CICC.
In accordance with the mandate of the Data Privacy Act as well as the Cybercrime Act, there's a mandatory requirement, a yearly agency-wide training when it comes to data privacy and cybersecurity. So we need to comply with that. And aside from that, of course, let us encourage our employees to join a lot of organizations when it comes to cybersecurity. And at the same time, work closely with the CICC and the National Privacy Commission in order for you to be updated. Aside from that, there's a lot of capacity development when it comes to cybersecurity. Google also presented a lot of cybersecurity training through the ICT. And at the same time, the USAID also provide to all government employees and private employees for the cybersecurity training and certification. So avail of that. Imagine it's free. And how much will it cost just to have a one training? 65,000 per person. But these trainings offered by the government are free. Avail.
That is a very good news, actually. And plenaries like this one, if you would agree with me, would also serve as a middle ground for us to be able to bridge the gap between the private and the government. Because it is through discussions like this, issues like this one, bridging the gap about cybersecurity training, the budget. We do not have our hands on the budget per se, but at least plenaries like this would be able to air out whatever is missing in terms of capacitating our cybersecurity posture. And if I may just add, in our organization, we do offer as well trainings, free trainings. And this is made possible because we have our partners coming from your sectors who are generous enough to give us the opportunity to educate young and promising cybersecurity professionals. If we can do that to the young ones, why not do it in our workforce? Okay, which, with another question is, cybersecurity landscape in the Philippines, of course, is constantly evolving. Can you discuss strategies for adapting to the ever-changing regulations and compliance requirements? I believe compliance and regulations is a big word in cybersecurity. So how do we deal with that?
Okay, so when it comes to compliance and regulations, let's adopt a lot of normative references. So when it comes to risk, when it comes to other frameworks that we need to build in our own organization, there's a lot of normative references like for the ISO standards, the CIS control, the NIST, SANS survey. I see SANS there. So there are a lot of things to consider. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Just adopt all these standards or international standards that are available. And at the same time, when it comes to compliance again, you need to first conduct an impact assessment when it comes to cybersecurity and when it comes to data privacy. So from your impact assessment, there you can craft your own policy and your own manual based on the result of your impact assessment.
Yes, from the compliance point of view, of course we have the regulator, the National Privacy Commission, and considering the fact that the commission right now is composed of 3 lawyers, I mean, John Henry Naga is a lawyer. The commissioner, the two deputy commissioners are both lawyers also. Unlike the previous composition na economist, IT person, and a lawyer. Ang dami nilang nilalabas ngayon ng mga circulars and advisories. They're really studying all the things that they want to bridge the gap as far as data privacy and cybersecurity is concerned. As far as cybersecurity, as I mentioned earlier, the NCSP has been approved by the President. He has signed an executive order. A copy of the NCSP is available at dict.gov.ph, the website of DICT. So, as also mentioned by Doc Joy, one of the main requirements is for us to appoint the DPO. Then, for the DPO to spearhead the privacy impact assessment. Because in the PIA, it's a sort of a risk assessment tool that can lead or that can organizations can avail for them to really identify the strong points as well as the risks in their data processing system. So, if we only comply with all the requirements as put in by the regulators, the National Privacy Commission for Data Privacy Act, for the DICT for cybersecurity and for building and fighting cybercrimes, then we can never go wrong with complying all of these requirements. And also, I would like also to mention that it's very important to have a public-private partnership, as mentioned earlier by Arlene here, that the government cannot do it all alone by ourselves. We need you, we need the private companies, private organizations to help us in building a cyber-resilient country. Thank you.
In addition to that, sir, it's also in the law that states that you should appoint also, aside from data privacy officer, a cybersecurity officer to handle all these cybersecurity threats. If you do not comply according to law, there are 3 grounds. So, administrative liability, criminal liability, and civil liability. So, imagine if you're the head of the company, yung kaliwang paa mo ay nakabaon na sa hukay. So, if I were you, please comply.
Correct. So ito, we have to make this a point out of this because GRC can sometimes become a foe. We have to admit, to most of us, GRC can become an enemy, a foe to us. But what we need to understand is governance, regulations, and compliance is our safety net. It's our safeguard for us to be able to ensure that we are complying and we are within the track in terms of cybersecurity. And of course, it doesn't mean that it stays grounded on this particular level because the GRC has to be innovative as well to address the ever-changing, ever-evolving landscape of our digital ecosystem. So, no organization is an island. That's what they say. That's why we are here, actually. So, how can increase industry's collaboration like this one and the exchange of threat intelligence foster a more secure digital environment for everybody?
Well, I would just like to build on what I mentioned earlier, the public-private partnership. We all know that in the government, as I mentioned earlier, budget is one of the constraints that we have in really trying to build a cyber-resilient organizations in the government sector. But as far as private companies are concerned, I know that you have more budget than us. So, and you can procure easily advanced technologies as far as fighting cybercrime is concerned. So it's really very important for the government and the private sector to really collaborate with each other. We could learn from the things that you can teach us. At the same time, if you have also needs for expertise like the expertise in data privacy of the National Privacy Commission, you could also reach out to the National Privacy Commission. So it's more of really of collaborating between the private and the public sector and really building on the expertise of each sector. Kung meron mga kakulangan ang government na pinupunan ng private sector, and at the same time ganoon din po kung may kakulangan ng private sector na pwedeng punan ng mga public sector, then that is really what we need to build on po, the public-private partnership.
That's right.
Yeah, this is how the supplier comes in. So let's admit the fact that we cannot do it alone. So there are a lot of cybersecurity suppliers from the Philippines as well as international. So let's entertain them and adapt their strategies, adapt their best practices, and yeah, let them do all the risk of transactions and how to cope up with it.
And the good thing about having discussions like this one, everybody is here. We're all competition, yet we are all here. And we have the same goals, which means that partnership and collaboration can really be a reality for everybody. Because the community is very big. But our organizations, our goals are quite small. So why instead compete? Why instead competing? Why not do collaboration and help each other, right? Because at the end of the day, we only have the same goal, and that is to have a secured and resilient Philippines for everybody, especially for the upcoming generation. Now, if I may just ask this question, just to inject the AI, not going through of course, the technicalities of it all and machine learning, what would be your opinion about it in terms of combating cybercrime, cyber attack, and having a more resilient cybersecurity posture for the Philippines? Would it help us? Or would it be more of a hindrance in terms of addressing our current concerns?
For me, will it help us? When it comes to data, it can predict cyber threats. And also, aside from that, let's use AI as a tool, not as a manpower. I saw this system, and when it comes to data protection, they inject all the memorandum circulars, all the advisory, all the law when it comes to cybersecurity and data privacy, and then ask that AI. They said, if you send it to the lawyer, it will take a minute, or it will take 1 week to answer the solutions and all the related laws on it, as well as the threats. But if you ask this AI, wherein they inject everything, the law, advisory, circulars, and so on, just a matter of less than a minute, you have the result. So let's make it as a tool, not as a manpower.
Yeah, I would like to echo what Dr. Joy mentioned, that if we could only make use of emerging technologies in a positive way or positive manner, then it would always be helpful for us. The problem is, most of these techie people are really making use of these modern technologies or emerging technologies in a bad way, in a bad manner, or in a negative way. Using AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, or even ChatGPT, as mentioned by Dr. Choi, it could give us answers in a matter of minutes, matter of seconds. In fact, just yesterday, I was requested to make a report on the CISA and the CISO certification. And when I searched it in the internet, there was a discussion, full discussion about CISA certification, about CISO certification. Although one thing that I like about this AI is that there's a disclaimer at the end of the discussion na sinasabi nila, this is not 100% foolproof. You could still look for other sources or whatever. But then this AI captures all the main important points. So that can really help us in really doing our research, to helping our country or the government in building up our defenses, both in physical security and cybersecurity. So it's really a matter of how we make do with this emerging technology. We make use of these emerging technologies.
I do agree with that, Robert and Joy, because AI is here to stay. We have to admit that. We have to agree to that. And it's like, if you abuse something, that's the time that it becomes lethal. However, if you use it to complement your daily work, notwithstanding the fact, of course, that you have to exercise cybersecurity hygiene in doing so, AI becomes our friend and it will not replace us, because that's that is what is the common misconception about artificial intelligence, especially in this era, that AI is here to replace us, but no, AI is here to help us. Just like what our automobiles, to our systems and to our processes. So now, for my last question, with all the emerging trends, technologies, shaping the future of cybersecurity, what proactive measures or what proactive steps can organizations like our organizations here can do or can take to secure our future in the face of the emerging trends?
Well, as far as the government is concerned, with these emerging technologies, and this is not only applicable here in the Philippines, but even in other countries as well, there should be proper regulation of these emerging technologies. Because if we do not regulate these emerging technologies, then it can be abused. As it is, as mentioned by Arlene, emerging technologies are here to stay, so we might as well live with them. Pero yun nga po, if this will not be regulated, if this will not be properly handled by regulation, by laws that would really put a limit on the implementation of these emerging technologies, then I think this will be prone to abuse. So proper regulation of these emerging technologies is a must for not only, as I mentioned here in the Philippines, but even in the other countries. In fact, in the United States, I've just read that there are already calls to regulate AI because they're really making use of AI in the United States. So sana sundan din kagad natin dito sa Philippines that we could already make regulations about this AI and other emerging technologies.
Let's consider also the other internationals be between us, like in the Southeast Asia. Let's say, for example, Hong Kong. There are a lot of regulations when it comes to AI and blockchain technology. So there are people who are now into ethics. So one of the most important for now, as of now, is to educate all of us when it comes to ethics and apply ethics. Right now, we have a lot of, because we are also part of the technical committee for Bureau of Philippine Standards when it comes to ID for learning. There are standards when it comes to AI. Still 1 year in the reading. So who knows, before it will be passed as a standard, there will be no new AI. And now there's a new bill. However, how many readings?
Yes.
Third readings to the Senate. And after that bill becomes the law, there's a new AI. So,
Mas gusto yata nila yung divorce bill kasi muna.
so yun. It's up to us. It's our accountability and responsibility.
Before we close our session, is there any question coming from the audience?